Hey everybody, it's me, it's Undead Viking, coming to you from my basement in Moorhead, Minnesota, with another video review. This is a really cool game that I'm going to be telling you about today, and I realize that's kind of giving away the conclusion here a little bit, but I'm just going to kind of ramble here a little bit, so I apologize to those of you who complain about the fact that I kind of go on and on about some esoteric stuff when I do my reviews. But when I was growing up in the upper Midwest in my youth, one of the things I really enjoyed reading were choose your own adventure books. My sister turned me on to those when I was a wee lad, and I remember getting those. And I remember that, like, the very first ones were called Choose Your Own Adventure, and you probably know what I'm talking about, but I always loved, reading the opening thing. Do you go in the cave or do you go in the forest? Turn the page, whatever, and you turn the page. And you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, that type of book was really appealed to me. And then later on, like, I played some of the Steve Jackson Sword and Sorcery books where it was kind of like more of an RPG thing, and so on and so forth. And the whole idea of having not limitless, obviously, but all these different paths of adventure available to me within one book really appealed to me. And it was just, I don't know, it was just something that I really dug. But regardless, as I got older and I got into the whole board game hobby, I heard of some games out there that actually had that different paths of adventure type of feel to them. And one of them was out of print for a long time, and they were going to do a reprint of it, and the reprint was going to come, and then it just wasn't, I remember waiting for this particular game for a long time, and the game was Tales of the Arabian Nights. Now, I'm not going to do a review of this, so I apologize for showing this to you, but this is that type of game, the game that has, it's competitive. Each person is moving about a map, trying to attain their goals, their adventuring goals that they have set for themselves. And as you move to different spots on the board, you draw cards, and different spots on the board tell you to read certain passages in this large book of encounters. And you can play it solo if you want, but it works best with like two people playing back and forth. One person reading the book, and then the other person, makes it. You have a situation where you say you run into an old sorcerer. How do you want to react? And there's all these different options, as far as like being hostile or being friendly or trying to run away or things like that. And depending on how you react, you flip through the book and you find something to read, and then you have an encounter, and so it's a game that I really like. I did a written review of it actually, and it's on Board Game Geek still. So I mean, if you ever want to know my feelings exactly about Tales of Arabian Nights, you can definitely go and check that out if you go to the website. But a little bit later, I heard about a game that unfortunately was out of print, but luckily there were some in print, some copies that just magically unearthed themselves, and I was able to get this game. And this is Star Trek: The Adventure Game, and this is a two-player game. I also did a review of this as well, a written review of this, and this is basically the same thing as Tales of the Arabian Nights, except it's set in the Star Trek universe. It has more of a sci-fi theme, obviously, and there's a little bit more head-to-head interaction between the two players, because you're kind of moving. One person is the Klingon, one person is the Federation, and you're warring over basically a sector of space, and you're trying to convince these different neutral planets to become part of your family, if you will. You're trying to make them the Federation, or the Klingons are trying to make them part of the Klingon Empire. And so in the game, but you can actually encounter each other and stuff like that. Unlike in Tales of the Arabian Nights, you just really don't ever run into each other. You're just telling the story as you go. And also really fun. And it's a type of game that I really enjoy. So, fast forward, whatever, and then now, of course, it's in the way back past. This is the past. This is the forward. But in the past, I heard about a game along this genre. Big Giant Book of Encounters. Different thing, and it was a James Bond spy theme. And I was really, really excited about it just because these types of games really, really appeal to me. And so I contacted the creator and I said, hey, he was going through Kickstarter, and I told him, if you'd like me to do a review of your game while it's in Kickstarter, I'd be happy to do that. Hopefully I can get some buzz drummed up for what you're creating. And he was very receptive to the idea, but we just couldn't really come up with a good way for me to get a prototype that would work, due to the fact that because of the encounters and the amount of text and everything like that, it just really wasn't going to be feasible. And while we discussed that, and we were trying to come up with a way for that to work and for me to have something I could show, the game just took off on Kickstarter. He got his funding, and we mutually kind of agreed that at that point it just wasn't. He had been successful. At this point, he didn't really need the video anymore. But he did say that once the game did come out, he wanted to get me a preview copy and of the published production, and he wanted me to do a review. So now that after all the Kickstarter people get their copies, and the extra copies that will go on sale, and you can pick those up at online game stores and so forth, you'll be able to see what it's like, and you'll be able to decide if it's a game that you'd enjoy. So as you probably well know, the game that I'm going to review today is Agents of SMERSH. Agents of this, and this is just cool art, don't you? I mean, it's just awesome. I mean, just look at that, all the pictures of the people, and it should be noted that this is the evil guy. This is Dr. Lobo, the person that the spies are trying to gather information on, so they can stop him from his evil plots to take over the world. And these people off to the sides here are the different spies that each person will play as they move around the board and have these wonderful encounters and work with each other to try to stop his evil plans. Now, I'm going to explain to you exactly how you play the game. And if you've played Tales of the Arabian Nights or Star Trek The Adventure Game, some of this will be very familiar to you. You'll be like, oh yeah, I've seen that in the game before. But there is so much more about this game because it is a cooperative game. Everybody's working together instead of being the other two games are not cooperative. Because this is a cooperative game, it has that wonderful added twist that you're all just kind of doing your own thing, because you can't really work together on certain missions, if you will. But you're all working towards a common goal, and so you get to revel in each person's successes and groan at each person's failures, and so on and so forth. But I'm getting beyond myself. I'll talk about more about that stuff when I do my conclusion. But I'm going to show you exactly how the game looks and how exactly you play the game. And let's just I've done enough of this intro as it is. So let's just dive in and do that right now. Okay, let's go. All right, I'm going to start off and say that there's a lot of game here, and lots of cards, lots of dice, lots of little tokens, and so on and so forth. So this will take a little bit of a time to explain exactly how this game flows and what exactly you do. But just bear with me, and we'll get through it all, okay? First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a few of the things that you're probably accustomed to seeing in thematic games like this. You have player boards, like so. These are the different spies that you can play while you're playing the game. These boards will have a little bit of information as far as the person's name and their code name and so on and so forth. You'll see that they have these skills over here: spycraft, persuasion, deception, athletics, and hand-to-hand. And the star, as you can see, that is where the skill starts out. So you have these white cubes, and you'll place these where they are. And as the game goes on, you will get better or possibly worse in these skills, and so you'll kind of move this up and down. The skill number determines how many dice you get to roll when you test that skill. Then over here you can see that there's this location 1 and location 2, and each agent will have a secret mission, and I'll explain that in just a brief moment. This heart here is how many wounds they can take before they go over their injury max, and I'll explain injuries as well, just a brief moment. Resolve. Each agent has a number of resolve points, and Dexter has 6, and once again you use a cube and and so on and so forth. Resolve's tough to get back, but you can get it back. It's easy to spend, obviously. Resolve gets to be used for lots of things. You can use it to re-roll a die. You can add 1 to a test. You can use it to move an extra space, things like that. Also, each agent has a special ability they can use for resolve. So like down here, it's like he can use up to 2 resolve per turn for tests. So I apologize, he doesn't have a special ability, but he can use 2. Normally you can only use 1, and he also gets 3 advanced skills, and he starts in the Congo Basin. But let's look at Rocco Jurgen here, and it says here he can spend 1 resolve to add +2 to a single test, or spend 1 resolve to reroll all dice. So he has different abilities. Notice he's got 4 health. The 3 advanced skills, I'm just pointing this out. Each agent starts with 2 skills, except for Dexter here starts with 3. And skills are these little tokens, and you could draw these randomly. The game says you can pick them, and if you notice, like they just say this one's weapon use, and this one is speed, and so on and so forth. This is just little skills, and when you have your encounters, what'll happen is sometimes it'll say if you have this skill, you succeed immediately. So you get to pick those. We have played it randomly, and that's kind of fun too. It's kind of luck anyway, because you could go an entire game with, say, driving skill, and you'll never have an encounter that actually uses it. Obviously, it's really helpful if you get them, but if you don't, you don't. You will have these in front of you the entire time, and you just like I said, you will refer to them, and of course this is the guy I like playing, of course, just because of the Afro reminiscent of the blaxploitation movies of the 70s. But anyway, talking about Shaft, these guys are the evil henchmen. This game is all about trying to take down Dr. Lobo, the evil Dr. Lobo. However, you never really fight Dr. Lobo. You're just trying to find his secret base, and theoretically, once you find the secret base, you stop him from taking over the world. And you find him by defeating the henchman, and you have to get the henchman on the board, and I'll explain how you do that in just a little bit. Yeah, I know, I've told a lot of things, I'm going to explain a little bit. But just so you know, cool little background story for each one of these people. Of course, there's the woman that's the evil woman. There always has to be an evil woman spy. Always has to be. And, of course, an evil French spy, apparently. But, anyway, regardless, when you run into these people, you will, depending on when you run into them, the first time you run into them, they will be on the level 1. So, you'll test persuasion to outsmart Fedor. And then if you pass, you get to raise a skill. Notice, remember I said you could raise skills. And if you fail, you would lower your hand-to-hand skill. And then if you beat him, though, he goes to this. And if you beat him again, he goes to this. And if you beat him a 3rd time, you'll flip this card over, and every time you run into Fedor, you're just considered to be automatically beaten. And because you run into, by placing tokens on the board, you can run into people. But once you flip the card over, you take their token off the board, but you can still run into them through encounters that you draw. So that's how these work, and they're just when I explain encounters, just remind yourself that when you run into henchmen, you actually just do the encounter that's on this card, and that's when you actually find their spot on the board by these little green location markers that you'll place. And you'll place these on a random spot on the board, and on the other side there's a picture. Of course, you don't know who you're going to run into, so you kind of just place those out there, and you hope you run into one that you'll be able to fight, obviously. Alright, so you've begun the game. Each of you has a spy. you're on the different locations of the starting. I see Dexter starts in the Congo Basin, so you, well, that's not Dexter, that's, there you go. So Dexter starts in the Congo Basin. Rocco Jurgen, he starts in Siberia. Agent X99, he starts in the Amazon. And Callie will start in New York. And Nika starts in the Alps. Right there. Alright, so now, when you play the game, what you will do on your turn is you will move, and then depending on where you're at, you will have an encounter. Now, where you want to move to? Well, remember I mentioned those secret the secret missions that you have? These cards, these fate cards, are used for tons of things during the game. If you gamble, you'll use the cards for the suits and the different cards you'll draw. So like if you ever have an encounter where you have to gamble and you'll draw 5 cards and you'll try to make a poker hand. Also, they have this city that's up here, and this is your secret mission. Each person will get 2 of them. So if these were the 2, your secret mission is Berlin and New Orleans. And so if that was Nika, you would just, you don't even look at the rest of the card, doesn't matter, and that's your secret mission. And so if you go to Berlin and have an encounter, you get rid of this one. If you go to New Orleans and have an encounter, you get rid of that one. And you've completed your secret mission. You get a benefit. There's a ton of different things. You can get resolve. You can raise a skill, things like that. And you then draw 2 more fate cards, and you get your next secret mission. Now, so the secret mission is good if you can pull it off, because sometimes it's helpful, and sometimes, if you're lucky, the locations will coincide with places that you need to go. But as you can see when I explain how the game works, it is a race against time. So if you spend a lot of time worrying about this, and not enough time worrying about trying to gather intel and trying to locate those henchmen so they can divulge where the location of Dr. Lobo's base is, you'll find that you're losing the game because you're not focusing on what you need to do. So that's secret missions. All right. And this fate deck does a lot. I'll explain that. I'll explain everything the fate deck does as we go along. Just one last thing before I get to it. This is the evil Dr. Lobo. And if you see, like, you get this big wooden gray pawn, and it goes here in the start. And as you play the game, you will have situations where bad things will happen. You'll fail tests, your spy will get injured, and those things will cause this token to slowly move down this board. And if it ever gets down to number 9 here, everybody loses automatically. Now all these little symbols that are over here are different symbols that are located on these intel chips. And your goal in the game is to try to find intel. Intel will be placed as the game is played on different locations on the board. And you need to race to those locations and discover them so you can take the intel. And when you take the intel, you don't get to look at the bottom of it. You just keep it face down and you place it on the board, like so. And then you gather intel one piece, slowly but surely. Now here's how you win the game. Well, technically you win the game 2 ways, but one way never happens. I mean, it could, but it'd be very, very unlikely. If you somehow get every one of these henchmen to flip over to the other side, you win the game automatically. However, that's going to be very, very difficult to do due to the fact that every time you defeat a henchman on this card, using the encounters on the card, this marker on the location will move up on this board. And once, depending on how many people are playing, if you're playing solo, it's 3, 2 players is 4, and 3 or more, it's 5. Once you get to that point, you've discovered the secret lair. And in order to defeat Dr. Lobo at the secret lair, the intel you have in this intel pool over here has to match wherever this pawn is. So if you were on, like, say 5, you would need 2 of these guns, you know, one of these like tech and the double agent. So so if you didn't have those, you wouldn't win the game. Now there are certain things, that encounters and what have you, that will eventually allow you to, like, flip these tokens over, some of them, and so you can have a good idea of what you have, or you can even absolutely know that you're going to win. But I've had games where I had to gamble due to the fact that we just saw the fact that we were, maybe going to lose the game if we just didn't take a shot and see if we had the right intel to win. And one time we lost, and one time we pulled out a win. But anyway, so now that's kind of the real basics of just what you're doing as far as playing the game. Now, let me just show you exactly how a turn works. So you can move up to 2 spaces normally on your turn. If you are in a location that has an airport, and I hope you can see this, there's these little spots that have the planes on them. If you're in a spot that has an airport, you can then use, let me just see if I hate zooming in on stuff, but let me just zoom in here a little bit and so you can see. So you can see there in Cape Town, there's a red airplane. Now, just so you know, airports close as the game goes on, so that the game gets tougher and tougher to get around the board. Anything with a red plane on it, however, will never close. But, like, say, let's back up here a little bit and see up there in Nairobi. That's got a black plane on it. Depending on when you turn over certain cards, that airport may or may not close for the end of the game. And airports never reopen. So it's just another one of those things is as the game goes on, the game gets tougher and tougher and more difficult. Anyway, like I said, I hate zooming in and out during videos. I think it detracts, but I apologize for that. Anyway, so when you move, what'll happen is like, say we're just going to take this agent, and we want to get this agent to an airport. So we go 1, 2, and we stop at the airport. Now, if you're on an airport, you can, like I said, move to near the airport, and that is your complete turn. If you ever move onto an ocean space, that is also the end of your movement. So if I started here and I moved 1 to get there, I have to stop in that location. If you're taking a boat, as anybody who knows about shipping times with board games coming on the boat, that takes a long time. So you get on there, and then the next turn, then you can move. But anyway, so there we go. We're at Panama City. We are now on a spot with an airport. We want to be able to take off. We want to be able to do something. But first, because we're on a location that does not have intel, or does not have one of these green tokens, we now experience the location. Now, I'm going to show you this, and I do apologize, I'm just going to pan down just a tiny little bit here so you can see this. I have 2 large decks of, like, rows of cards here. And you'll notice, like, here's the South American card. One of these cards has this little book on the bottom. And one of these cards doesn't. On the back of this card, you'll see there's an encounter, something I'll read off and I'll experience. On the back of this card, it just tells me what type of the experience it is. It gives me a number, and then it also tells me my response group. I'm going to explain these in just a moment, but let me explain this right now. So let me just go ahead and put that down. And you get to choose which decks you wish to use. You can use the decks that have this, or you can use the ones with the book. You can also combine both of them and use them both if you so desire. So let me just go ahead and move the back up a little bit so you can see the board. And once again, I do apologize for adjusting. But anyway, so this card, like if I drew this card as the player, and this is a game where you have to get into it. Yeah, you could just read off exactly what it is, but you're supposed to read the flavor text. So it says, racing down a gravel road at high speed. Oh, and that's with intel. Let's pretend there is no intel there, like I said. No intel.
Another agent has taken into custody a Soviet for making deals with one of Dr. Lobo's closest advisors, but interrogations have rendered no results. The other agent asks you for help. Test persuasion, +2, or pass with the detection or disguise. So now those are the two skills. If I had detection or disguise, I'd automatically pass. However, if my test persuasion +2, that means I'm going to test my skill of persuasion, but I get to add 2 to it. So if I had like a 1, I'd get to roll 3 dice. If I had 0, I get to roll 2. If I had 2, I get to roll 4. So I'm going to go ahead and look at that character sheet. Hold on, just one in. And let's look at his persuasion. Well, I just started off, so I'm at 1. So I get to roll 3 dice. Now, there are, as you can see, these dice, and they're very, very colorful and neat looking. And you notice these dice have different results. Like this is an injury. And the gun is a success. And that's Dr. Lobo's evil, triangle secret society thing. And that's not a success, obviously. So these dice, all but this one, go in to this bag that you get. And you shake them up. And you grab 3 dice out of there, because that's how many dice I get to roll. And these dice are not all the same. The brown dice is pretty bad, actually. Look, there's all those failures, and there's 1 gun on there, 1 success. And, like, look at this one. It's like, the black dice is actually really good. It's got lots of successes. It's got 4 guns on there, 1 failure, but a 2 injury. So you'd actually have 2 injury. And the red die is kind of middle of the road. It's half and half. There's 3 guns and 3 bad. So you always get to roll 1 die, and I apologize actually, since I roll 3 dice, I'm not going to get these 2. I got to pick one at random here. Hold on. There we go. So I got lucked out. So I take these 3 dice and I get to roll. And right now, since it didn't list a number of successes on the card, 1 success is all I need. So I'm going to roll these dice, and look at that. I got 2. The little triangles that doesn't do anything, but I got 1 gun. So that means I succeed. So I go back to the card and I look at it. Pass. You are a good interrogator and notice the L pill in his mouth. You stop him from committing suicide. He eventually talks. Gain 1 intel. So that's awesome, right? So I went there. Now I get to draw 1 random intel out of the thing, and I get to go ahead and place that in the intel pool. So, I mean, that was really good. I was really lucky that I got that. Now, if I failed, it says, he bites into his cyanide tablet before he can be coerced to talk. Lose 1 resolve. So there's things that are good and bad, obviously, depending on whether or not you succeed. Now, if you actually fail the encounter, something bad happens. And when something bad happens, you have this villain deck here. And what happens with the villain deck is that you draw a card off the top, and here you have like the villain advancement side and the end of turn event side. Now this one's actually pretty good because you notice the number on there is a -1, meaning that we would actually reduce 1 from the Dr. Lobo track over here. There's only 2 of those cards in the whole deck. I just got really lucky to have it. Actually, I was unlucky because the game has just started, and so we haven't adjusted that at all. So that card would have been great to have later. But let's just draw one that would actually have something bad happen. Oh, here we go. So there's a 2. And of course, once again, it's a game of theme, so you want to read the text. It's like, villain advancement. 2 prominent nuclear physicists disappear soon after renouncing Western nations. And then all of a sudden, so you go up 2 on this track. So we were at the start, but now we're at 2. And then, and unfortunately, and now, because it's the end of my turn, I'll flip this over and I'll do the end of turn event. Now, if I succeeded like I did, you don't read the villain part of the card. You just read the end of turn event. And so the end of turn event reads as follows: the Prime Minister Vorster sends prisoners to work in the SMERSH diamond mines. Remove intel in South America. If I had any intel in South America, I would have to remove it right now. If there's more than one, you just take one of them, and you can choose which one. And then it says add intel to Montevideo and Warsaw. So this is when your old geography comes in handy. So I know Warsaw. You take one random intel, and you just place it right there, and Montevideo, if I remember correctly, is in South America. So you grab another one. You just go ahead and place that down there. So now, even though I went up to Panama City, I was thinking I was going to fly and go somewhere. Next turn, maybe I'll just head back down to see if I can grab that intel if it's still there. Now, there is one other thing I'm going to show you before I show you the giant cool book of encounters. If you go to a spot that has an intel on it, you have two choices at that moment. You can either have the encounter with the intel. And when you do that, you take the intel and you move it onto your intel pool. And then when you draw your encounter, so like here's my South American encounter with no book. If it's with intel, the tests are usually a lot more difficult. So like this one will say military radicals under the leadership of a man named Eduardo Silva have opened negotiations for deals with Soviet arms dealers. Fearing a resurgence of militant communism in the region, the government is planning violent action unless Silva can be convinced to back down. You have gone undercover as a Soviet propaganda expert, and Silva has accepted your friendship over the past several weeks. You plan to use your bond of friendship to warn him that the Soviet Union desires to eventually do away with him. You now sit alone with him in his library. So it says here, test persuasion, -1, or deception, +1, but there's a bracket there, and it says 2, meaning you have to get 2 successes. So if you have a high persuasion, you'd -1, and like let's say you had a 2, you can -1 and roll 1 die and hope you get 1 success to win. Or if you don't think you have any shot at that, you can go deception, get an extra die, but you need 2 successes. And once again, you'll notice, pass with disguise or seduction. Now, it's important to note that whether or not you succeed or fail at this, you still get that intel. You get to take that and put that aside. But when you fail, these things are usually pretty bad. In fact, this one actually says when you fail, you lose 1 intel from the pool. And of course, once again, if you fail, you have to use that villain track, turn the card over and see how bad it gets over on the side for Dr. Lobo. Remember, if you ever get to number 9 on that board over there, you lose the game. All right. The other option you have, if you go to a spot with an intel, you don't cash in the intel. You turn it in, and you draw a fate card. Look at the spot, New Orleans, and you take one of these green discs and you place it there, meaning that there's a henchman there that you can go and encounter, and if you defeat him, you can raise your the track marker on the location. So you can see the intel gives you either intel that you'll use to defeat Dr. Lobo, or it gives you locations of the henchmen so you can actually find Dr. Lobo. So that you have to kind of use them half and half or whatever ratio you're going to use, so you can defeat. You can not only get the items you need to defeat him, but actually find him so you can actually win the game. One other thing before I forgot to mention this about movement. If you notice up here, and it's tough to see, there is a train, the Trans-Siberian Railroad, up in Russia here, and if you're on a spot with a train, you can go to any of these locations with a train as a single point of movement, which is also something I forgot to mention that, and I do apologize. Now then, finally, I'm going to show you the big giant book of encounters, and this is probably the coolest part of the game for me anyway. Alright, so as I said, I showed you this card, and it said abducted, there's a 5, and then it's response group C. So, I'm playing, and I'm going to tell the other player that they got this location. I'm going to say, okay, here's this big sheet, and it's got a bunch of group reactions. And on the back side, if you're playing with the ocean encounters, you roll a die, and then you use one of these die rolls. But anyway, Here we go. The group reaction sheet. We go to C, and I say, okay, it's abducted. So are you going to observe, quick action, test your limits, with determination, get assistance, let's have some fun, at all costs? And you don't know what you're going to experience. You just kind of have to decide. So let's say we're going to quick action. So we have a 5, we have a 2, and now we need a third number, and I'll show you why. And to get the third number, you draw a fate card once again. And here you have no intel, with intel, and this number down here would be for an ocean encounter, because you notice there's a little seaman, like blue, and then like the wheel or whatever to pilot the boat. Anyway, so we've chosen 5 point quick action 2, and there's no intel. Let's say so 5.2.3. So now we have this giant book of encounters, and this is so cool. Look how thick this is. Look how huge this is. I can't even imagine what it took to write all this. But anyway, so you'll notice in here, there's all these pages of encounters. Tons and tons of encounters. There's like 1,600 different encounters in this game. And you just find 5. Here's the 5s. So 5.2.3. So here we go. It's like 5.2.3. It's carnival, and the streets are overcrowded. You believe you have evaded your pursuers, but a UN agent you were working has disappeared in the crowd. You search the alley where she was last seen and find a masked man on stilts holding the other agent with a gun to her head. Hand over the microfilm, the man demands. You kick one of the man's stilts as he grins at you. He's not actually standing on stilts. He's over 7 feet tall. Test hand-to-hand or athletics. +2, but you need 2 successes. So like pass, a tall man hits the other agent on the head and she falls unconscious. He wrestles you and pins you to the ground. You manage to grab his crotch and poke his left eye. He tumbles off half blind. You carry the other agent away. And so your reward is an advanced skill. So you get another skill, and you can pick one. Or fail, he grabs your neck and bashes your head with his iron fist. You fall unconscious, but a group of others flood the alley before he can kill you, but he takes the microfilm. Nothing bad happens to you here, but since you failed, you'd actually read off the bad result on the villain card. And that's what this is. I mean, man, these, I've read some of these they're funny and they're hilarious, and they're even a little bit risque at a couple of times. And so yeah, this makes the game for me. I mean, we play with the cards as well, but I'd rather just play with this giant book because it's just fun reading this stuff off. There's one final thing I'm going to show you, and then I'll go tell you exactly what I think of the game. And actually, I'm sorry, there's 2 things I'm going to show you. One is the status cards. Occasionally, if something bad happens or something good happens as a result of an encounter, you'll be told to take a status. And so you just reach in here, and if they say, oh, you get insight. So you just take this and you put this by your character, and it's something that like insight. Anytime you get intel from any source, you may roll a d6 for each intel. On a 1 or 2, you get to flip that intel over. And also once you can discard to reroll all dice in a spycraft test you failed. And probed by aliens. And let me see if I can find one that's like a bad one. Amnesia. You have trouble remembering your past. You may no longer use your advanced skills as long as you have amnesia. You can discard this as a reward for completing a secret mission. So bad things can happen as well. And finally, one last thing. There are these small top secret cards that you can get as rewards. And these are just basically ways that you can use to break the rules. Immediately take 2 UN transport tokens and discard this card. Oh, UN transport tokens. I forgot to tell you this. As the game goes on, as I said, the airports close. And you get these tokens that look like this that just have a little airplane. And then as you get told they close, you just place them on the airports that have closed, like so. And it gets tougher and tougher to get where you want to go. So you can get these tokens that are UN tokens. And what these UN transport tokens allow you to do is they will pick you up from anywhere. and they will deliver you to nearly anywhere. They aren't going to deliver you into like the middle of the ocean, so to speak. But if you were in the middle of the ocean, you could call in a favor, and I don't know, a big PBY plane comes and flies and picks you up, and it will fly you, to Moscow, or it'll fly you to Chicago, and so on and so forth. And so if you have that token, it allows you to actually be able to get to, say, an airport that is closed, if out of an area where you have closed airports, like you basically call in your secret spy network that gets you out of there and to where you need to go. And those are rewards you get, and I think one of the players actually starts with one. So, so top secret cards, just nothing bad ever happens for having one of these. They're very useful. But after all that's kind of the basics of the game and how you play. You move around the board. You try to pick up the intel tokens. You try to track down the bad henchmen and defeat them. And hopefully, before the Dr. Lobo can get all the way down to number 9 there, you will be able to locate him and be able to bring him to justice. So, you probably can tell due to the fact that I was pretty excited about the game, and I gave it a lot of good kudos as I was doing the review. I do like it, but let me tell you exactly why I like it.
Okay, I do apologize. I know at the beginning of the I shouldn't say the beginning, but during my introduction, I specified that all these people here on the front, this is the evil guy, and these are the different spies that are, you can be. And I was actually incorrect, because the Russian-looking guy that's right here is actually a henchman. But you've already probably realized that when I was showing the gameplay. But anyway, just apologize for the mistake there. But anyway, so here are and I wanted to point this out before I tell you exactly what I think of the game. But here are the different spy cards you get, and these people are fairly interchangeable. I mean, the stats are roughly the same. They have a few little special powers and stuff like that. But I mean, even the stats and the skills, they fluctuate so much during the game. It really doesn't matter what the beginning is. And even if you said, well, I'm gonna play the guy that has really good hand to hand. You really don't have any control over whether or not you're going to have that. You don't have any control over whether or not you're going to need your spycraft or persuasion or what have you. So it's one of those things where you can try to play to your strengths, but by and large it's kind of you're either lucky or you're not that you get to. But anyway, so I mean, obviously this game is set in the James Bond era. And by James Bond era, I don't mean the most recent movies, which are still cool, but I'm talking Sean Connery era, where the Russians were still the big evil people, and the Cold War and what have you. And so each one of these people, obviously is some sort of stereotype or some sort of typecast type situation. I mean, obviously this guy's the nerd, right? Yeah. And here's the really beautiful evil female. Well, I shouldn't say evil because she's a person, but the evil female ninja character, who's of course obviously good looking, the femme fatale, really resourceful female spy, and obviously a guy straight out of the Shaft movies or the Dolomite movies, and then so you're thinking, okay, there's got to be one guy that's Mr. Suave, debonair, James Bond, 007 guy, but then the last person you have is this guy, who is apparently an Austrian soldier, and I'm supposed to think that as a spy he's just walking around with this combat helmet on and carrying his big giant knife and just okay, fine, whatever, he's interesting, whatever, but I don't know, this guy doesn't scream spy to me. He kind of just makes me think that he's just this big brute that's walking around just and is so tough he just doesn't care whether or not somebody is going to track him down and fight him. But regardless, whatever, it just seemed weird that was one of the typecasts, if you will. But anyway, so Obviously, since I've said repeatedly, this is my type of game and a game that I enjoy, you knew that when I was going to get to the end here, to the conclusion, you knew I was going to have something positive to say about the game. And frankly, the game is amazing. It isn't going to be for everyone, due to the fact that you're going to have to like this type of genre. You're going to have to like this adventure type game with the encounters, and you definitely do need the right group. It's not a situation where people are going to be using their brains and having brain burn and big long analysis paralysis turns. It's not a game of deep strategy or anything like that. It's just a game of having fun. And yes, there is an end goal, game winning situation you're striving for, but it's one of those really, really good games where it really doesn't matter if you win or lose. It's the story. It's the journey that you begin from the very beginning of the game, and you carry on, and like that feeling of impending doom coming as the game slowly works its way towards the end game, as the pawn marker slowly creeps up on Dr. Lobo's card, and more airports close off, so different areas of the world are tougher to get to, and knowing that time's basically running out, and you have a situation where you're going to have to just get lucky maybe, if you're going to be able to win the game. Now, and then if you lose, you just kind of say, well, fine, because there were so many really, really cool encounters along the way that it's still very memorable and still very enjoyable, and that's in my opinion, that's the mark of any good game. Any game that I can play, whether it is a cooperative game or a game that I'm playing against my friends, if I get done playing the game and I lose, but I still had a really fun time playing, then yeah, I mean, the game is just good. And by and large, lots of games are like that. But it's the games, for me, that inevitably tell me a story and make the session memorable. That really, really hit on all cylinders for me, and make me realize that this game is something special. And for me, this game is really something special. And it isn't going to be for everybody. I understand that, but for my group and my friends and my wife, because she really likes Tales of Arabian Nights, she really dug this game. And she dug the fact that Tales of Arabian Nights is still a very, very good game, but I think this theme is a little bit more approachable. Instead of but for me anyway, and I also think that this game just it has more of a driving story to it, because of the fact that I think, one, it's cooperative, and two, it just it has a clearly defined end goal in mind. That something that you are constantly striving for, and the little encounters and the things that happen. Yeah, some of them are kind of out of place, but for the most part, they feel like they're part of an ongoing storyline of a movie, if you will, or a mystery or a science spy novel that you're reading, and yeah, I mean, you have the occasional odd like chase scene or something like that doesn't seem to really fit, but it does just feel like you're part of something bigger, I guess, if that makes sense. And every time I've played this game, I've just found myself just smiling as I play, and I've said that in a few reviews, that if I just catch myself just smiling and laughing as the game goes on, I know that I've got a winner. And for me, honestly, nothing is more enjoyable for me than actually having a bad encounter, or reading the encounter to somebody and having them fail, and then everybody laughing at their misfortune as they have whatever horrible outcome. Even though that inevitably is making the game tougher for me to win. It's always fun to like say it's like, way to go, Craig, or way to go, Andy, you screwed that one up. And it's really not their fault. It's just they got the wrong dice and whatever. I mean, the game is completely chaotic. It's completely random. And it's very, very, very based on luck. But if you're able to just kind of just lay back and just let the river take you where it wants to go, and just recognize the fact that you have choices, but they might not be like very impactful choices, if you will, then you can really enjoy the heck out of this game. I'm so glad that I don't want to brag, but I think this is like one of 2 copies that are actually like in existence right now. This is one of like the very first promo copies that was printed off and sent off, and I'm just absolutely ecstatic that I got to play this game right away. And I feel for those of you who have kickstarted the game, and I feel for those of you that have pre-ordered the game and are just anxiously waiting this game. But I'm just telling all of you, the wait will be worth it, and you'll dig the hell out of this. So I think, and for those of you that are on the fence and you're wondering whether or not it might be a good fit for you. Hopefully I've convinced you that this is something that you'll enjoy, because if this type of game, as I've tried to explain to you, you feel like it's going to hit on all cylinders for you, then just pre-order it, and get it ready to come to your door, because as soon as it does, you'll be plopping it down and enjoying the heck out of it. If I had any sort of problems with the game, the little tiny counters for the lost airports, not lost airports, the airports that are getting to get shut down, these dudes, they are so tiny. I don't know why they just didn't make them normal size. Maybe it was something where they just they only had so much room for cardboard sheets within the game, or cost effectiveness. I would have much preferred those are a little bit larger. It just seems like whenever anybody breathes hard on the board, those kind of flip over. I do think that out of the box, the game is way too easy. My friends and I have had to up the difficulty level, and there's rules within the rule book that actually tell you how to up the difficulty level. I always kind of get a little bit annoyed that I expect the first time that I play a cooperative game that the game just grabs me, punches me in the face a couple of times, and chews me up and spits me out and says, "You lose." Because because I expect the game to be difficult. I expect that maybe because Arkham Horror was like the first co-op game I ever played, and I played that like 10 times before we were actually able to beat the game. So I wanted the game to be tougher than it was. But regardless, it's like. But once again, going back to what I said earlier, win or lose, the game is just fun. But for a co-op game, like I said, I wanted to just bam, punch me in the mouth right out of the gate. And this one didn't. It was one of those things where we had a pretty easy time of it the very first time we played. Maybe we just got lucky, but we upped the difficulty the next time we played, and we actually started losing. So I did appreciate it more, I guess. But it's those are the only real detractions I can really say about the game. It's just a nice, wonderful, solid adventure game, and I think it will find a very happy home in many of your gaming libraries. But enough gushing about the game. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this lengthy review. I do appreciate each and every one of you, and my subscribers and my followers and what have you. If you have any questions or concerns about this game or anything else, you can always just post those comments, and I'll try to reply to those as soon as I possibly can. Until next time, this is Undead Viking. You take care of yourself and have an awesome day. Bye-bye.